Tonight on our news, the opposition suing over public procurement. The Prime Minister says, bring it on. The judge presiding over the Adrian Gibson corruption trial refusing to step aside. Find out the details as to why that decision was made. Grand Bahamians thankful after Hurricane Ian only brushes that northern island and later hitting close to home. Cable Bahamas employees remember a co-worker murdered this week. Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. The opposition to take legal action against the Davis administration over what they call the government's failure to follow the Public Procurement Act. Tonight, the Prime Minister is responding. Our Megan Shepherd gets us started.
Prime Minister Philip Davis brushing off the Free National Movement's threat to take his administration to court.
They never brought it into force until September, when they knew that they would not be in administration, because they knew that it was an unworkable piece of legislation. And we will be correcting the flaws of that bill.
The Prime Minister had previously described the Public Procurement Act, which was passed by the last F&M administration, as not workable. The legislation, among other things, is crafted to provide transparency on how government ministries, departments, and other agencies enter contracts and expend public money. While he supported the legislation in opposition, the Davis administration committed to amending the legislation when coming to office, but that didn't happen. Now, Free National Movement leader Michael Pintard adamant that the Davis administration has consistently violated the law.
Tell the public, who are you giving contracts to?
Pintard says they have tried several methods to get the information, including the Freedom of Information Act and the Public Accounts Act, but they've got nowhere.
So the next step is to take legal action to put pressure on the government, and we have been in discussion with at least two of the lawyers who are going to work with us on this matter, and we're going to pursue it.
He says he believes this lawsuit will put pressure on the Davis administration.
And what is the big deal? What is it that you're concealing? Why you would not share the information? And so we're going to move as quickly as possible.
Reporting for our news, I'm Megan Shepherd.
A judge has set a May 2023 trial date for the Adrian Gibson corruption trial after refusing to step down from hearing the case. Justice Shell Grant Thompson denied a motion by Muriel Ducille Casey, who had argued that the public might perceive bias because her deceased husband, Peter Bethel, once served as a cabinet minister in the Progressive Liberal Party government. Gibson is a sitting MP for the Free National Movement. Bethel died on July 22, 2000, when Gibson was just 18 years old. Grant Thompson has been remarried for many years. Ducille supplemented his arguments before Grant Thompson delivered her ruling today. In his additional arguments, Ducille suggested that the judge was biased because she was appointed under the PLP, which she dismissed as a disgraceful allegation. Gibson is accused of benefiting from contracts that were awarded by the Water and Sewerage Corporation while he serves as its executive chairman. Prosecutors say Gibson acted along with Elwood Donaldson Jr., the former general manager of WSC, his cousin, Rashay Gibson, his campaign general, Joanne Knowles, Peaches Farquharson, and Jerome Mizik. Police in Abaco have a murder investigation on their hands after a man was shot and killed overnight. Police say the deadly incident happened around 11 p.m. in Crossing Rock, South Abaco. That's when officers at the Sandy Point Police Station got word of gunshots being heard in the area. Responding officers found the victim's bullet-ridden body near a staircase of a business. At the scene, police found a loaded black .9mm pistol. Police say the victim was transported to the Marsh Harbor Clinic, where he was pronounced dead. A 46-year-old man has pleaded guilty to manslaughter in a fatal stabbing at the Progressive Liberal Party's Elizabeth constituency headquarters last year. Kyle Dean initially faced a murder charge for killing Kendrick Cambridge last September, 2 days before the general election. But Dean pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter as a part of a plea agreement before acting Chief Justice Bernard Turner. The court heard that the man fought after Dean poured Cambridge's drink on the ground. That's when prosecutors say Dean stabbed Cambridge. As a part of the deal, Dean was sentenced to 12 years in prison, reduced to 11 years for time served. Dean risks spending an additional 3 years in jail if he doesn't stay out of legal problems for 2 years after his release. Now, Dean was represented by Damian White, Acting Deputy DPP Cordell Frazier, and Karen McEwen were the prosecutors. McVeen, rather. In just a few days, masks will no longer be mandated at most places in the country. But what led to the Davis administration to make the major decision? In this report, Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Philip Swan explains. But as our Berthany McDermott tells us, the reasoning seems a bit different from the ones given by the nation's chief.
Days ahead of the removal of the mask mandate, the acting chief medical officer is explaining why. Dr. Philip Swan says the rationale behind several restrictions being lifted is for the public to exercise personal responsibility. He says the mask mandate is no exception.
The adherence to the mask mandate is less than acceptable, with the Royal Bahamas Police Force not being able to enforce it uniformly or equitably across the various sectors and levels of activity. Despite this, however, we note there has been no increase in cases of COVID-19 reported, and hospitalizations also remain low, and vaccination campaigns have not had the expected result.
However, a different reason was given by Prime Minister Philip Davis, who has repeatedly said vaccinations must first reach 70% before the masks are removed. Last week, government announced the mask mandate will be dropped on October 1st, except for those accessing healthcare facilities, visiting senior care homes, or in an indoor classroom setting. In a Twitter post, the Prime Minister said the move was recommended by the Advisory Committee at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. When it was originally implemented, fines were levied against those found in breach of the rules mandating the wearing of masks. When asked if penalties will remain in place for the specific areas, Swan said this.
So we have, I think, for the most part, if not everywhere, removed any of the, or recommended rather, the removal of any fines associated with the non-wearing of masks.
And as the country emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic, the acting chief medical officer says eyes are on other diseases that they say could be a threat to the Bahamas.
We have been advised that the Bahamas has a direct potential threat of polio being imported as a result of it circulating in New York and London, two cities with whom we have direct flights multiple times a week. We have had actually an imported case of pertussis or whooping cough within the past month.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Thanks for that report, Berthany. Now, the country is one step closer to getting up to 1,400 doses of monkeypox vaccines. According to Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Philip Swan, symptoms of monkeypox include fever, chills, swollen lymph nodes, exhaustion, muscle aches, headaches, and respiratory symptoms. Dr. Swan says the Ministry of Health has been in contact with the Pan American Health Organization.
Last week, we confirmed our order with PAHO for the monkeypox vaccine. Now we're waiting final details as to when we'll receive the same in country.
Some tense moments this week as Hurricane Ian skirted past us, and that meant some wet, windy conditions. Greg Thompson is here with our first look at weather. Greg?
Thanks, Natalia, and welcome everybody for our first look at weather on this Thursday evening. Pretty nice after we saw some earlier showers. Temperatures are in the mid-80s. Intermittent clouds out there. We still have a few light showers. Winds out of the south, they're breezy right now at 18 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature hanging out in the upper 80s. Satellite view, well, Ian has moved offshore of the east coast of Florida, just around Cape Canaveral. It's going to continue to move towards the north. Eventually, this system is expected to re-strengthen to a hurricane throughout the next 24 to maybe 36 hours. But we have a trailing rain band and some clouds associated with that system affecting portions of the northwest Bahamas as well as the central Bahamas. Grand Bahama, Bimini, you guys are seeing some improvement. But central Bahamas now getting some showers and thunderstorms associated with that band, and that will continue to pull out towards the east. That's our first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Ahead, a sigh of relief for Grand Bahamians as they escape Hurricane Ian, but the anxiety of a threatening storm opening a lot of old wounds. Landlords or slumlords, the Environment and Housing Minister claiming that some landlords are dumping waste. And the cable group of companies remembering one of their very own, killed in a brutal murder this week. Stay with us. What was Hurricane Ian has now moved into the Atlantic Ocean after leaving a trail of destruction in western Florida. The storm leaving behind flooding, down power lines and trees. The R News team was on the ground today assessing Grand Bahama and spoke to several residents who say they are grateful that the island was spared.
Dorian was enough, I feel, for another several centuries. Hopefully we don't have to see, anything catastrophic anytime soon.
Over in Grand Bahama, cleanup efforts have begun as there is some debris in the road due to wind and rain this week. Today, the seas were still rough and Ian tracked north. Residents are now breathing a sigh of relief as they are happy that the storm only caused minimal damage.
We feared for the worst, and we didn't know what direction it would go in. And as you can see, I have a lot of property and a lot of things to take care of. And I'm very pleased that God spared it this time, and we really the island could not take another catastrophic hurricane.
We were hoping and praying, and I'm sure there were many that were praying that this thing would pass us by and that we would be, so to speak, spared again this time.
I am just so grateful that the prayers really gone up to God that we all were safe, because we can't take another hurricane. Dorian was just too much for us, and God knows all things.
But Campbell says she was prepared.
I make sure that everything was at home for us, our supplies, and then everything we needed from the store. Make sure that my family members were straight, and family and loved ones too.
Duncanson says if a storm comes to Grand Bahama, he is sure that residents will always be on high alert.
We have some past experience that has awakened us, and we're a little more alert than we were previously because we never really had one like Dorian.
Hurricane Ian damaging the roof at a healthcare facility in Bimini, according to NEMA Director Captain Stephen Russell.
The clinic was compromised last night, and they had to relocate persons operating the clinic to the administrative building adjacent. Teams from the Defense Force are in Bimini. They're going to assist with securing the roof of that clinic to make sure that no further damage is done to the facility being exposed to the elements.
Russell says there was also flooding in Alistown, Bimini. He says there seems to be a drain issue as well. Now shelters on both islands have been deactivated. As for Grand Bahama, Russell says there is debris throughout parts of the island, adding that there also seems to be a power supply issue.
That problem still exists, but teams from the electrical corporation, they're trying to see how they can rectify that problem as quickly as possible to restore power to the western Grand Bahama area.
As Hurricane Ian took aim at Florida, many in the northern Bahamas were prepared in all sense of the word. Now, health of the mental health services for the northern Bahamas, Dr. Gregory Son says many are still recovering from the mental toll of Hurricane Dorian 3 years ago. He says the threat of Hurricane Ian triggered a lot of anxiety, and he has his advice for those finding themselves in that state.
We will find that there are a number of persons who are really having some difficult time managing, and we're working with those. But for the most part, generally speaking, the residents are managing within normal limits. And normal limits meaning that there are some issues that they're experiencing, but nothing out of the ordinary that they can manage themselves.
Bahamas EVAC recently launching the Be Alert Caribbean Emergency Network. CEO Anthony Gibson says the system provides free access to a 24/7 hotline for medical emergencies and health-related questions.
You would just have to go to www.bealertcaribbean.com. There are two options, one if you're visiting the country and another if you're a citizen or you're a resident. Once you click the link, it'll take you to the register page, and you can register yourself, your children, your parents, whoever you wish to have registered under you. And again, it's a very simple process. Half of the time spent in emergency services is gathering information, as you know.
He says the goal is to give people access to free air ambulance services.
We'd get even people in New Providence, they call the office all the time. You know, they would have a loved one at one of the major hospitals here, and they're seeking to get them abroad, or if just family island coming to Nassau for treatment. And so, it's a very big deal for me to be able to seek ways in which we can lift that burden from the Bayman people of wondering when I go to Auckland, or when I go to Cricket Island, or when I go to Inagua, if I have a problem, how do I get home and what's it going to cost me to do that?
A blistering attack was launched on some local landlords by Environment and Housing Minister Von Miller. Miller says that, put bluntly, some of them are slumlords. The minister insists those who continue to dump waste need to get their house in order.
Additionally, they will collaborate with landlords to ensure that these landlords upgrade all of their rental properties, both in New Providence and the Family Islands, because some landlords are slumlords. You need me to repeat it? So landlords, if you're not acting right, we're coming at you. Get your houses in order.
Miller's scathing comments came as he announced a collaboration between the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Renewal and his ministry on an extensive cleanup and beautification project. Now, the project will begin on October 3rd and is all in an effort to get the country ready for the 50th Independence celebration next July. He estimates phase 1 of the project will cost millions.
Bahamians should be aware that over the past 3 years, the Department of Environmental Health Services has removed over 8,500 derelict vehicles from communities throughout the Bahamas. And it is estimated that the activities earmarked for phase 1 of the project in New Providence alone will cost over $1.1 million.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When our news comes back, could the company responsible for the Exuma oil spill face legal action? Find out.
Plus, Italia coming up in sports for you tonight. The University of the Bahamas taking a milestone leap as they get set to host their first ever cross-country meet. We'll also tell you how the Miami Dolphins look to stay unbeaten as Thursday Night Football kicks off another week in the NFL. That's all coming up in sports.
An incident with 2 employees at the Road Traffic Department prompting those in authority to address the situation. We have the details when our news returns. You're watching our news. Welcome back. Attorney General Ryan Pinder giving an update on possible legal action following the Exuma diesel spill 2 months ago.
The Office of the Attorney General has collected all of the applicable reports from the agencies, including the police, the Port Department, and from DEP, and have gone through those with respect to potential liability. We've also done an analysis both on domestic law as well as liability that would be connected to international conventions that we're members of with respect to oil spills, and have done an internal analysis on liability, and we're now preparing the appropriate documentation to bring action. Our environmental laws are pretty stringent, so I think we're pretty good there. Needless to say, we feel comfortable about the existence of liability and damages.
The Ministry of Transport and Housing releasing a statement on the Road Traffic Department this week addressing allegations surrounding 2 employees at the Road Traffic Department, saying, quote, the ministry takes grave exception to personal allegations against employees being made public while the allegations remain under investigation by independent parties, end quote. The statement comes after Diane Farquharson, a senior clerk at the Road Traffic Department, spoke to media this week about alleged ongoing harassment from a fellow Road Traffic Department employee.
And not only me, a lot of the employees, but they are afraid to come out.
The University of the Bahamas headed toward an athletic milestone as they gear up to host their first ever cross-country meet. Meanwhile, the Dolphins put their unbeaten record on the line in Thursday night football. Marcellus Hall is up now with a check on sports. Marcellus?
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. The University of the Bahamas athletic program has been doing some big things this year. That trend continues this weekend as they get set to host their first ever cross-country meet. We will feature a lot of different teams from all around the Bahamas and also some international competitors. Let's take a look.
University Athletics expected to host the first UB cross-country meet this weekend at the Queen Elizabeth Sports Center. Now, the meet will include courses between 1 kilometer to 4 kilometers. The open division will run the 4-kilometer course through the Sports Center. The under-17 division, they'll run 3 kilometers. The under-15 and under-13 divisions, and they will tackle the 2-kilometer course, and the under-11 division, they will hit the 1 kilo course. So, meanwhile, University of the Bahamas Athletics Director Kimberly Rowe saying she is excited about the meet that is expected to become an annual event.
We're well known in the community for what we do in track and field. And so a part of the athletic agenda is to expand our cross-country element. And so I think it's important that we display at the university level what we have, some of the recruits that we've been able to attract. And this will also give us a great way to see what's out there.
Meanwhile, the NFL heads into another week of play tonight with Thursday night football. One that has a lot of interest here for Bahamian fans is the Miami Dolphins take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Dolphins, one of the few remaining unbeatens left in the NFL. Bengals looking to get themselves back on track. Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for the Dolphins, is expected to play tonight. By the way, you can make sure that you don't miss any of this type of action as you sign up for our Rev Sunday ticket, which is available with the Trio program. Sign up today and you get Trio. You get the NFL Sunday ticket free of charge as a part of your package. So make sure you check out all the action. We'll give you details on tonight's Thursday Night Football coming up for you tomorrow. And that is your look at sports here on this Thursday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Still ahead on our news tonight, a Cable Bahamas employee remembered by his co-workers here after his murder this week. And wondering what type of weather we will have this weekend following a rainy week? Meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center with those details. That's coming up when our news returns. Welcome back to our news. If you are making plans for the weekend, you may want to check the forecast. Here's Greg with our extended weather forecast. Greg?
Thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. Of course, Ian is now offshore of the east coast of Florida. It's a tropical storm, still packing winds of 70 miles per hour, moving towards the north-northeast at around 9 to 10 miles per hour. It's continued that track over the next 24 hours, and it is now in the Gulf Stream, which is a warm body of water, so it is expected to re-strengthen once again to a hurricane before it makes a second landfall somewhere near the South Carolina border by the end of the week and into the weekend. And a trailing rain band associated with that system still affecting the Bahamas, mostly across the central Bahamas right now. We got some showers and some thunderstorms earlier across New Providence and portions of the northwest Bahamas, but that band will continue to slide out towards the east. We could see one or two more weakening bands across our area later on tonight through tomorrow as the system pulls well to the north and away from us, actually. And in the tropics, we are still tracking a tropical depression out there, tropical depression number 11. It's really just not causing any problems to anybody. It's expected to continue moving towards the northwest. Eventually, it's expected to weaken by the end of the week. Boating forecast, small craft advisory posted for the northwest Bahamas. The winds will start out out of the south to southwest at 15 to 25 knots tonight, but they expect it to fall off tomorrow. Seas will be running 5 to 8 feet. Your high tide will be at 11:04 tonight. For the central and southeast Bahamas, all caution flags have been dropped for you guys. Southeast to south winds at around 15 knots. They will come down 10 to 15 knots tomorrow. Your seas running 3 to 5 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through the next 7 days. Some residual showers hanging out across mostly the northwestern portions of the central Bahamas. But by early next week, we expect a frontal boundary to eventually get in our area, and we could see some increase in shower activity by then. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe Thursday evening, everybody.
Thanks, Greg. Now, police continuing to investigate the circumstances surrounding the murder of Marcus Hinsby. The British expat was found dead in his Western New Providence condominium on Monday. I spoke to one of his fellow Cable Bahamas group of company's co-workers today.
He was quite a big part of our own little group in the Cable Bahamas Business Solutions team.
That's Vice President of Cable Bahamas Business Solutions, Sharnette Thompson, describing the co-worker she says was loved by all. Hinsby, who is a property manager for the gated Veneto condos on Atlantic Drive, was found dead inside his home. Police discovered his lifeless body after being alerted by concerned co-workers. Thompson says Hinsby missed a few meetings on Monday morning, which was suspicious, and that is when the company decided to conduct a wellness check.
We thought it was important to call and knock on the door and make sure that he was okay, and that no response led to us getting the police involved and a locksmith to breach the door.
The Cable Bahamas VP admitting that the tragic incident has affected employees.
The mood is still quite a bit somber because you almost still expect him to come through the door cracking a joke or giving some guidance or making requests on behalf of customers.
Thompson says Marcus Hinsby began his journey in the Bahamas 40 years ago and first worked with Digital Systems Bahamas Limited, which provided computer systems for government agencies in the 90s. She says Hinsby then became a part of a company called Bahamas Online and Systems Resource Group, which was later acquired by Cable Bahamas. The Vice President of Business Solutions says over the years, Hinsby has touched the lives of many throughout the information and communication technology community.
And in the course of that span, he's also impacted the careers of many local IT professionals in the country, either helping them to start a business or referring customers to them.
And Marcus will surely be missed by many. And thank you for joining us tonight for our news. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.